Hey everyone, it's your host Marcus Norman of Gentleman Style Podcast Show. And today I have an incredible gentleman, Mr. Michael Reed of Adoptive Men. A very interesting, very unique podcast, very different, but a very necessary podcast that we have to the stage here. And this gentleman, he's on a mission. Him and his team are on a mission to work with and educate men, and more specifically entrepreneurs, on the impact of detoxing your body and your mind in order to optimize your daily energy and achieve the goals faster without the use of any fancy fads, pills, gimmicks, or schemes. And so today we are going to be talking about why men are not doing well. And I couldn't have this man is absolutely the perfect guest to have on the show today to walk us through and have this discussion with today. So, without further ado, help me welcome to the stage the incredible Mr. Michael Reed.
I got out my own game. That was impressive. Even the intro was legit.
You're legit, sir. Your resume is extensive, and what you're doing, I hail as necessary. What you're doing is absolutely crucial. Men are not thriving. Men are not winning. We're not succeeding, and we're not doing well. And it seems to, I can't pinpoint the shift. I can't pinpoint when this happened for a man. In your research, with you and your team, have you found when that transition? Because men, we used to be the dominant force. Game of Thrones, you name it. We used to be the dominant force in what, the 1800s, 1700s. And somewhere along the line, we fell off. Now we're experiencing low testosterone levels. Men are staying in their basements and living at home, staying at home much longer than necessary, in my opinion, in some cases. Again, there are economic factors, there are external factors that have conduced men to be, but in the same breath, women are thriving. Women are occupying more positions of parliament and government positions in jobs that were primarily and dominantly hosted by men. I don't think anything's wrong with that per se, but our men are not thriving in that same environment, and women are killing it. When did you, if you have, notice that shift? Your thoughts?
I got into all this fun stuff in my own life about a year and a half, 2 years ago with this very, very, very condensed version. Is an ex-girlfriend that broke it off with me. But the breakup was very deja vu, where it was like when things started to go awry, it was like the exact same symptoms and patterns and habits from past relationships that popped up again. It was just like, what the F is going on? Like, I literally have had this exact same conversation with like past girlfriends before. What the hell? I wanted to then start digging into the research and whatnot, and realizing how much of my own behaviors and patterns were contributing to it. And then digging further to that, realizing like, oh, it's everywhere. It's not just me. It's like, it's relationships falling apart left and right. The divorce rate is skyrocketing. The birth rate is collapsing. Men are just kind of like, they're falling off the charts pretty badly across the board once you start digging into like the books and the research and the data and whatnot. And as to where it all starts from, that's a very long form, convoluted answer. But one of the better, simpler answers I've seen a lot of people come across is the ideas around the industrial revolution, mainly when factories came along. Because that was one of the first times in human history where a disproportionately large amount of the day, the dad or the fathers was away from the home, not around the kids growing up and raising them. Even though there was also women, and so there's like a lot of horror stories of the factories and whatnot. But that was one of the first times where work became so ridiculously separated from family life. Usually, most people were just farmers. Prior to factories and things like that, outside of big cities, most people were just like family farmers, like family-owned generations of farms. And you basically worked with mom and dad all day, every day. And you had a lot of those opportunities to watch your parents and how they interacted and how they did things in the world, and conflict negotiation, and like kind of like getting that energy and that masculine energy from your dad would have been you working on the farm with your dad all day, every day. And then one day, dad just said, I'll see you in 12 hours or 14 hours and going to the factory for like the entire day. And a lot of the young boys spending a lot more time around their mothers throughout the day, a lot more feminine influence. And then as they progress into, cities and society, and we have large metropolises and whatnot, a very large portion of people have to travel and commute very far for work. And historically, 1940s, 1950s, post World War II, a lot of those people tend to be men. And like this is where you get like the middle class hopping up in suburbs and things like that, where moms, the typical like stay-at-home wife of the 1950s, mom stayed home with the kids all day, maybe with like grandma and other women around. They raised the kids, and dad was off to work all day, and a number of other things we could talk into. We can break it apart from there. But that was there were at some point in history we kind of had a massive removal of older men being able to mentor younger men on a regular, consistent generational basis. And that divide just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And it's starting to cause new problems in today's day and age.
I love that. That is a school of thought I have not heard yet, and I appreciate that and I admire that. That is a huge paradigm shift. There a huge emphasis on a man having to spend more times at the factory versus the farm,
Mm-hmm.
where you have both a pouring outpouring of parental influence and still exhibiting that hard work, the core things, right? Critical thinking skills, those key things that aren't taught in school, right, or through academia. Um, right, a lot of people, like one time I met a woman and she said, why don't they teach my kids finance? That's why I pay all these taxes for. And I just politely told the young lady, I said, financial behaviors are mimicked, and they're mimicked at home, right? Have
Mm-hmm.
you ever met a young man who had a big sneaker collection? I got every Jordans, I got every Timberlands, I got every sneaker known to man. Well, that's a trained behavior. That's something
Mm-hmm.
that school is not going to. So money habits, right? If mom's a big spender, mom got 16 closets. That's a feminine trait, and so 9 times out of 10, those traits pass along to the kids. Right? Money is the same way in my perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Money habits are followed. You can't teach that. So if mom was always, every time she got a paycheck, mom is at Louis Vuitton or she's at this store, and the daughter follows suit. And she grows up. Mom has now removed herself, but the daughter is still trending those habits. So the same thing with men. And so it's powerful that you say, yeah, when men were gone, they no longer have that adaptation, that influence of that masculine, those masculine traits and qualities and habits and mindsets. Do
Mm-hmm.
you subscribe to do you subscribe to a single mom can teach a man how to be a man? I don't, and I'll put my opinion out there with you. I don't subscribe to a man. A woman cannot teach a young man how to be a man. I don't subscribe to that at all.
I don't, but I think the kickback you get tends to be a very chicken versus egg problem. That's just like people who get mad at that are the ones saying like, well, it's because there's tons of shitty men out there. Like, well, maybe it's shitty men that were raised by a single mom. Well, maybe moms because they had a shitty man for a partner. And then it's just like, whose fault is it really? And there's lots of layers as you can dive into like the politics and the history of like even like family systems and whatnot historically, and why the single parent rate is skyrocketing nowadays. But objectively, removing all the patriarchy, feminism, angry politics, everything purely on like scientific basis is a good book I can recommend. It's called the Two Parent Privilege. I forget the name of the author, but she basically runs through all the data and research we have around children's outcomes with two parent systems. And I think they do maybe mix in like homosexual couples too, but for the most part, the outcomes for most boys and girls with the absence of a father figure or like a healthy male disciplinary figure in the home throughout those critical years, like childhood into puberty into adulthood, like they fall off the car so hard. And it's not even like a single mom's fault.
Right.
It's just like we were objectively never designed evolutionarily to like one parent, two parents is not enough for one kid. Like it's even that is still too much. We really like you go back far enough, and it wasn't that long ago. Like my father is 70. I was talking about the other day about this, and he was saying how like when he grew up in his neighborhood, he grew up in Brooklyn near New York City in New York. That there was like almost always a grandma, somebody somewhere on like a doorstep, just watching the boys, like watching the boys and girls, all them kids like playing outside, playing stickball, or running around playing tag. But there was like someone's mom or grandparents or someone was always nearby in proximity. And it's never the job of like just two parents to raise just the kids that they have. You have the grandparents, the aunts, the uncles, the cousins, like neighbors. It takes a village to raise a child. Like and then you can dive into that even like on a neurological level. Like children demand a higher amount of almost like emotional energy and input on a daily basis more than like what parents can single-handedly give. Which is why you kind of distribute the load to multiple people usually in the community. But
Absolutely.
nowadays, yeah, with like the gender wars and whatnot, it's getting worse and worse, and the number of single parent households is just skyrocketing. Yeah.
It is. I can see that. The community. It takes a village. It takes a community to raise that child, more so than two parent households. And in a society where it is, the emphasis is now, especially with the cost of inflation, both parents have to work, and grandparents are getting younger.
Mhm.
Grandparents are getting younger. And also to that effect, the community is no longer gone. The community of raising a child is gone. Right. Grandparents don't are less and less wanting to be involved in their grandkids' life. Or I remember I was listening to another podcast, and the gentleman said that he called his grandparents. He was living in, let's say, Seattle, and his parents resided in Florida, and he and his wife and his family, they were expecting a baby, and they moved to Florida to be like literally down the block from grandma and grandpa.
Mhm.
And they were expecting that grandma and grandpa would assist and come down and visit. That's why they moved their whole lives. Grandma and grandpa wanted nothing to do with them. They
Mm.
wanted you can drop them off here and there, but when are you going to be back? You can't leave them here. You can't, you got to contribute. You know what I mean? Like, it was, they weren't engaged. They weren't willing to participate like before. Um, and the other thought was, and I think I really like this idea, is there's not enough space to raise kids, right? So the average apartment that a couple can afford is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. So what he was advocating for is parents who have a house, switch houses, right? So you rent the apartment, and the kids can live in a big house, because space means, okay, we have enough space. We have 5 bedrooms instead of this 2 bedroom that me and my wife can afford working 2 jobs, and we can only afford this 1 bedroom or 2 bedroom. Whereas mom and dad have this big 5 bedroom, 2.5 bathroom house. Now it's more conducive for us for raising a family. So what he suggests is the parents switch houses, and the kid allow the kids to move into the house, and then he move into the apartment. But any thoughts there?
Yeah, good luck convincing grandma and grandpa about that. Yeah, we've lost a lot of grandparents to Florida. It's not unusual. I live in Georgia. Yeah, there's a lot of them. There's a lot of retirement communities around, even around me. I'm very close to South Carolina, in the United States, on the East Coast, and there's a lot of retirement communities down here. And I've met a lot of people over the years. It's a combination of a lot of things. But you said before, grandparents are getting younger. I think it's actually the opposite. They're getting older. And that actually now the average age of marriage and children is getting older, which means consecutive generations are getting wider and wider apart now.
Really?
And
Okay.
part of the problem with that, like I said, is like you have less community access to have people to help you just watch your kids while you're doing just to take a break, like take a chance, whatever.
They're tired.
You're tired, yeah. And again, it's like emotionally taxing to raise kids for just two parents to work a job and also raise a kid at the same time. And it might have been different like back in those farming days when it's like, well, we're all going to be tired because we're all working the farm together. So we're all going to crash into the day at the same time. But nowadays, yeah, to work a full time job and then come home and then have to like deal with kids who are probably wound up out of their mind from school, which doesn't really do a very good job nowadays of getting their energy out and things like that, causes a lot of problems. But yeah, the other side of that being post World War II was really the first time, I believe, in all of like human history that we had such a ridiculously large economic boom across like everything. Like there's a first generation of history that was just like, holy shit, we were all living like how kings and queens in the day wish they could have. We literally have our own property with our own private house with running hot water and a friggin' like electricity and like food right down the block. And yeah, and you can dive more into like the numbers and whatnot of the economic boom that happened post World War II. And then 1970s, they removed the dollar from the gold standard. So like, inflation just like comparatively took off since then.
Yeah.
And a big part, and this kind of ties back into the problem of men thing, at least with, multi-generational trauma, is post World War II was the first generation of people that really, most recently, the first generation of people that had a heavy amount of undigested traumatic experiences that they then brought home into the household.
Mm.
And a lot of grandparents, a lot of parents, a lot of grandparents you can look to, just they don't understand emotions. They just suck it up and deal with it, not realizing that it just sits in the back of your head. It just compounds. It just backlogs. And my argument is that like life was so freaking good with how much money you were making that you just didn't have to worry, didn't have to think about it. You're like the how happy I am buying my third house offsets how depressed I am about not getting hugs from my dad who came home from the war.
That's a very great point. That also speaks to, I often hear women say they want a provider, right? They want to go back to the old ways. They want to go back to the lifestyles of where the women stayed at home, the men worked and paid all the bills. But I can see now that you said that, men who came home from World War II that are suffering from PTSD, post traumatic stress, all these different things that they saw and they can't speak about, and it's the most economic and flourishing time, that could have led to the abuses that women were experiencing back then as well,
Yeah,
right?
and they weren't
Because
also allowed to divorce and things like that. I think, but even interestingly, if you look at the divorce
you said
statistics,
women weren't allowed to divorce.
divorce was extremely difficult prior to like 1941 or 21, 22. And it's like if you look at the statistics of what like the year they basically made it easier, the divorce rate skyrocketed. So there's a lot of people who are in very unhappy marriages and whatnot, a lot of messed up things that were going on. And it wasn't until like the 1980s when we actually had an official diagnosis for PTSD. But if you go back through, like, if you can jump to like ChatGPT and like, what's the history of PTSD? We have records even back to like Roman times of like soldiers, like, or Greek soldiers having like the 1,000-yard stare, or that kind of just like disconnection. Like, it's part of human psychology. It's been around for a long time. It's just that this is the first time in history we actually can have like we kind of like diagnose it in a more modern medical sense. But you're seeing how it's having a generational impact with a lot of parents who just don't understand, don't have a good emotional connection to themselves, and then pass it along to their kids, and then it just compounds consecutively through the generations.
So you do or you don't think that that experience is what caused women to be abused, and then when the laws change, then here's a massive divorce rate skyrocketing. You
It's
don't
part
think?
of it. It's
Okay,
part
that's
of it.
part of
There's other parts to it too, but that's a big part of it.
it. I do you think it's hard for me to imagine men wanting to be it's very hard for me to imagine men just being abusive all the time to their wives, not having love, not having admiration for their wives. But when you made that connection, for me at least, I can see, oh, this man is suffering from. I knew of a couple. The husband went to war during 9/11, came back home, had traumatic PTSD, saw his
Mm-hmm.
friend blow up in front of him. Chunks of his friend's skin is on his helmet and his gear, and he had severe PTSD to the point where he was abusing his wife.
Yeah.
And but she never left him. She didn't divorce him because they understood he was with the VA, trying to work with the VA, trying to get it worked on. And ultimately, the man ended up killing himself. He ended up blowing up his brains because after he would have his episode, his psychotic breaks, he would cry because he's like, I can't control it. So he shot himself and blew his brains out because he wanted to stop hurting his wife.
Yeah.
And so that's what makes the connection for me a little bit there. So, but there's other factors. Absolutely, I
Mm-hmm.
agree with you. I just it's hard for me to imagine men just wanting to a woman who cooked for you, cleaned for you, did all the things, and you still are abusive to her.
It's not a voluntary choice most of the time. And this is
Yeah,
what I think a lot of people get wrong about things like trauma and traumatic experiences and digesting old emotions and whatnot. And even PTSD is still like they're still getting some. I think they're getting some good progress nowadays with the use of like psychedelics and things like that. Post-traumatic PTSD, any kind of trauma in a nutshell. First off, guys, I don't like talking about it because it sounds too girly. It sounds like one people like, oh, just oh, it's my trauma. No, no, no. But in a nutshell, it's basically something happened that exceeded your brain's ability to handle it. It's like your nervous system has a certain range of what it can handle in terms of like extreme experiences, and you went right past that barrier. You blew past it. And in a way, it's like your brain's trying to remember that incident so it doesn't lead you back to it again. You ever heard stories of guys who, people who are like have a hard time with like fireworks?
yes, yes.
It's not that they're going like, oh, this intentionally reminds me of grenades going off. It's that our brain is going like, this is the very similar-ish. So I need to like put you into a heightened state of get the fuck out of here because I don't know if this is a grenade or a firework, but I'm not going to take the chance. So you're going to go into like a super defensive, like tension, like in the tense up mode like that. You have like those episodes, like you said, and it's involuntary. All of it is involuntary. It's part of your brain that you can't actively decide to not do once it happens. So when you hear the stories of these guys who are abusive and like whatnot, like he's like that guy said, it's tragic to me they took his life like that. But he also, part of him knew it's like, I can't control it. I can't turn it off. There are therapies and things you can do, and I don't think the VA does a very good job right now of really addressing it the way they should. That's a whole other story too. But teaching, that's a big one. Teaching guys that, like, people in general, the guys in particular, like, these are different parts of your brain acting independent of each other. Like your defense and protective systems and whatnot, they're independent of your love and admiration of somebody. It's two separate things.
Yeah. Yeah, especially when something as powerful as the brain releases those same chemicals, right? You experience someone that got blown up, chemicals were released. Your brain released those chemicals. So during the same episode, again, I can't tell the difference between, your brain can't tell the difference that's fireworks or not. So they're going to release those same adrenaline pumping things to get you the hell out of there.
Yeah.
So
and along the way, you'll perceive, you'll go into a bit of almost like an autopilot where you'll perceive people in your life as threats to you. Absolutely. Even like your own wife and kids, like you could literally feel like they're going to try to hurt you. Like your brain goes into a complete survive at all costs mode in some circumstances, some cases. But even like a much smaller version of that could literally just be people with just mild to moderate traumatic experiences from their own childhood, from their house growing up, from their family systems and things like that. And it shows up in, like toxicity in marriages or in relationships where they just can't, like, why does she always do this thing to piss me off? It's like, is she really doing it deliberately to piss you off, or are you misinterpreting something because it's based on a past experience you had a long time ago?
Exactly. Hashtag facts. I love this. Oh man, I love this. I need your help. What does healthy masculinity even mean in 2025, and who gets to define it? Is it men? Is it women? Is it society? Is it society who's making it up?
It's the individual, but I think even within that context, a lot of different religions and cultures, they have their own version of masculinity, and it seems to usually line up pretty well with the conditions needed to survive in the times or the environment that they're in. So if you're living in war times, healthy masculinity is like, don't be afraid to beat the shit out of somebody and kill somebody. If you're living in peaceful times, it might be more like, oh, just, do your best to maintain structure and be disciplined and don't go crazy and things like that. Most commonly, though, across the board, what I see for like the qualities of healthy masculinity is just some form of structure, direction, purpose, like focus. It's kind of like pick a direction and go, it's kind of apt the way like male sexual biology is. It's like it just picks a direction, it just goes, yeah. But I think it's less about like you need to have a six pack. You need to have a six pack and have 6-figure income or 7-figure income, be 6 feet tall. If you don't have a mansion, what kind of man are you? If you're not hustling 24/7, what kind of man are you? Versus saying like, do you have like a game plan for your life? Do you have a goal you're moving in the direction of? Do you have structure in your life so that like when the cage gets rattled and things happen unexpectedly, you can handle the vibrations that happen along with it? Do you have purpose of what you're working towards? Do you have a sense of like what your life you want to do in your life, what you want to accomplish, and how you're going to accomplish it? I think a lot of what women buy into when they get into like long-term relationships with heterosexual men is usually like their vision of the future. If this is the simplest way to point this out is when you like when ask any woman who's ever gone on a date with a guy, or if they're going out to eat and he asks her like, what do you want? She's like, I don't know, what do you want? I'm like, I don't know, what do you want? Like anything you want. And immediately she's just like, just fucking pick something. Oh my God. And I've talked to guys about this. Like they'll be like, yeah, my girlfriend, my wife, like she wants me to like plan dates. I don't really know what that means or what to do. And what I'll tell them is like, think of it like an 80% accuracy. Like you don't have to get it exactly right, but she just wants you to just take care of this so she can focus on other things over there. And like in the like a good buddy of mine, I think his son is now 1.5 years old. I was talking about the exact same thing, and he mentioned how his wife was asking him to plan dates for them. And he's like, I don't really know what to do. Where do we go? And I said, like, it's not about getting it perfectly right. It's about taking that burden of planning that off her plate because she's, whether she likes it or not, her mind is so focused on her child. It's like hers, like she has no choice but to just like be aware. All that mental energy is being just used up on trying to make sure their kid is all right and doing well and everything's planned out. And he has like the play dates planned, he has the food and his clothes and the schools. All that stuff is just going through her head involuntarily what she wants to. And even if she didn't have kids, you think about women who don't have kids, they have a very different view and experience of the world. They're physically more vulnerable. They have a lot more things to consider in terms of like, life planning and things like that. And so when a man comes
more
along,
than a man.
under certain say circumstances and things like that, it's keeping
Give,
like
can
there's
you
like
can you give me one example of what a woman has to consider that a man doesn't?
safety,
A man doesn't have to consider his safety.
not the same way, I would say, in terms of like, I'm trying to word this. It's like
I
they're,
want you to feel through that. No, take your time. I want
yeah,
you to
yeah.
feel through that because I agree with you halfway. I'll agree with you
Mhm.
halfway. I think we both men and women are concerned about safety, but in a different way.
Yeah.
A man is not so concerned about, like, you ask any man, hey, have you ever considered the dangers of walking down this dark alley? Not so much as a man than a woman does,
Yeah.
right? Especially if that man is muscular, he's strong, he's confident, he's healthy, or in this day and age, he's armed, right? But I agree with you. But a man who I've experienced this myself. So I'll tell you as a man, it is uncomfortable for me to go to work, go out, drag it, kill it, come home, and then have to contend with a contentious woman at home.
Oh
That's not
yeah.
safe. I don't feel secure or safe. Now that's different than a woman's physical safety. But I still don't feel safe at home where I
Oh
gotta
yeah.
come home and I
Contextual
gotta fight with
safety.
this.
Yeah. You can get a
So
little more specific. Absolutely. Yeah. So better, a simpler way to, I guess, to rewind back to that point I made before about the restaurant thing. It's like if you ask her where do you want to go, whether she wants to or not, our brain's going, okay, like, well, we can go to sushi, or we can go to pizza, or we can go to chicken place, or we can go to Italian. There's also that Spanish place. We go, yeah, I've been to the Spanish place last week, and I wanted, like, that place was pretty good. Wasn't that good? Wasn't that good? My friend was telling me, oh, I can go there, but I have to wear a different dress. And all of a sudden, it's just like the mind just goes in 25 different things of like different, like, where are we going to go? What time is it going to be? What am I going to wear? Like, is anyone I know going to be there? Do they have good reviews? And it's just like, it's an involuntary flooding of options and things to like connect.
right.
And there's a whole evolutionary basis of like women were much more like historically they were more the keepers of just like data, and they're like the memory banks before we had like the cloud storage and things like that. Before we had written language, women were much more apt to keep track of like social dynamics and this and that. And they had a better working memory than men did.
They made a movie about that.
What movie was
And
it?
Hidden Figures, with women being the calculators or computers. They call the women computers at NASA. Because before the integration of actual computers and utilizing computers to calculate, they were using women as computers.
Hmm. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah. But in that context, before like, with that whole moment where like, where do you want to go to eat? All of a sudden, 25 different variables pops up in her head involuntarily on top of other things, and make sure her son's got a place to go. It just helps when her husband could just be like, chicken or Italian, two options. I don't really know. Cool. I want Italian. How does that sound? Cool. Let's go with that.
And we go and we
And
just
then we
head
go.
out the door.
And we go. And it's like I say 80% because it's like, well, what if it goes wrong? Well, then you can basically be the one. All right, my bad. I'll fix it for next time. And even then, with people, those guys, I basically say like, do you have a general idea of what they like? Like, yeah, like cool. Do you like a general idea of like what kind of food they like? Yeah, so general idea of what kind of activities they like. Yeah, all right. So what do they like? Oh, well, they like sushi and Italian, and they like seeing movies, and they like going out dancing. Cool. Sushi and dancing one night, Italian and movies the next night. Problem solved.
There you
And
go.
you can just mix and match it. But the idea is just about. I've had it several times. I moved from New York recently. I've seen it several times with women. I've gone on first dates.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm done with that place. Um, Several times where I've met them in the park, just literally just like first introductions, and I would say like, "What do you like? Anything you want to do?" And she's like, "I don't know. You tell me." I was like, "Okay, let's go sit on a bench and talk. That's what I want to do right now." And more often than not, they're like, yeah, okay, it's fine. They'll just come with. And it's not like me telling them what to do. It's me kind of saying like, this is what I think would be a good thing for us to go in the direction of. If you have any problems with it, let me know. We can change course if we need to. But I'll just pick a direction, and you help me course correct from there.
So you are speaking. This is good. This is good. You are when I used to date. When I used to date,
Mhm.
that's as I learned, as I grew, and the later part of my years. I'm now 37. So I want to say my early 30s. I started dating like that, and it showed a significant improvement in the type of dates I went on and quality of dates.
Yeah.
I stopped inquiring after the initial conversation. I stopped inquiring where the lady wanted to go, and I just said, "You want to go out? When are you available?" And then I would just pick a place. And if she said yes or no, then I'm gonna still go regardless. And and there's very few questions I would ask a woman, right? Because I want to just, hey, get to the point. Hey, do you have any food allergies? Are you allergic to anything, or are you on any special diets? Those are the only two things I would care about. Everything else, I would just do it. I'm saying, hey, we're going for sushi at this place at this time. Do you want me to pick you up, or would you like to meet me there? Because I'm this gentleman style podcast. But I would offer it to them, and
Yeah.
they would say check, 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 or no to this, no to this, and then I would proceed from there. But I realized that resulted in a better outcome of my dating
Absolutely.
experiences because I already automatically want to go to this place. So that's already said and done for a guy. I think more men should adopt that philosophy
Oh yeah.
outside of food restrictions. And if she's vegan, pescatarian, anything like that, everything else, just tell her, hey, we're going out for ice cream. Hey, we're going for this. Hey, we're going for this. I'll see you at 7, or I'll see you at 8. And that improved my dating experience drastically. Is that I think that aligns with what you
Yeah.
speak to.
Yeah. It's basically like it's picking a direction and go. I have a guy I remember speaking with a couple months ago. Um, I have a small men's group I facilitate as part of a bigger collective that somebody else runs. And one of the guys in the groups, I think he's in his mid 50s. And he was talking about, like basically, I get this point of like, do what you enjoy and allow a woman to choose to come with you if she wants. It's kind of the crux of it. And he was talking about how he was going on a date with his wife. They're married 25 plus 30 plus years now. And he's like, well, we went out to this Italian restaurant I liked. And, I asked her if she wanted to go. And she said, she's like, man, like, she's okay, I guess. And we go to this. And I asked her, do you want to order wine? And she says, no, I don't really know. And she's like, well, do you want to order this appetizer? And she's like, I don't really know. And he's like, well, what do you want? And I stopped him and I was like, do you want to order wine? And he's like, yeah, I like to order wine. Like, then you fucking order wine. You want to order an appetizer? Like, which one do you like? Oh, I like this, this beef appetizer. Cool. Then order the fucking appetizer. You enjoy it. Let her figure it out, whatever she wants to do. She's okay. She doesn't need your help because whatever, for whatever reason, she's just not really sure what she wants, but she's just feeling through emotions right now. Let her process, and just be there with her as she's doing that. And kind
Absolutely.
of just say like, whatever is going on in your head right now, it's all good. I'm here to chat whenever you're ready. I'm just going to enjoy myself, and hopefully you enjoy yourself.
Exactly. Fellas, do what you want, right? Do what you want. You meet a nice lady, you meet a young lady, do what you want. Hey, I'm going here. Do you want to join me? Like you said, do you want to join me? And she'll say yes, no, maybe so. Hey, I got the kids this weekend, or I don't have the kids. Let her figure out her world, and she can participate in or not. I encourage people to do the same thing, right? Go where you like to go, right? I think you make a better connection, a better quality connection when you connect with someone doing the things that you enjoy. So you're not if you like horseback riding, chances are you might meet your potential love interest horseback riding because it's something you both individually love, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to meet someone going to a bar where everyone's getting inebriated and they may not even remember the night before. I've never found that experience to be a quality setting for matchmaking, right? Going to the bar,
Yeah.
getting a bar. Now, a lounge, a music lounge is different than a bar. A bar is, I'm talking like there's no food being served. This is straight alcohol to the vein.
Yep.
That to me is not a conducive environment to pick up women. Um, your thoughts on what men? I think there are not enough examples. There are not enough places for a man to display excellence, right? If I'm horseback riding or I'm archery, there's not too many places that a man can display his dominance, his masculinity, whatever you want to call it. Men don't have a lot of places, and I think men need to push back. Right? Women have conferences, they have social groups, they have twilight house parties where they can go with their girlfriends and bug out to twilight and oh Jacob, oh Edward. They're not playing. What are your thoughts there?
We have lost a lot of co-ed spaces throughout the past couple, 50, 60, 70 years. There's a lot of, so tying back a little bit, a lot of what human mating and dating behavior tends to be is more a function of proximity than anything else. You've heard about like the dating apps do a terrible job of this, which is like, oh, do you like this person based on these quick superficial attributes you saw within the last 5 seconds? There's plenty of people who like, there's no shortage of women out there who are like happily married that if you ask them like, when you first met your husband, did you know he was the one? She's like, I didn't really like him at first. No, it didn't really. It wasn't really, not wasn't a cup of tea at first. But like we happen to be at the same social events. We happen to have similar friends, and I got to watch him get a sense of who he is, know that he's safe. And over time, I just started to develop an interest in him. And one day, he came up to me, asked me on a date. We went on a date, and boom, a year later, we were married. Now we have like how many kids, and I love him to death. But the idea is like sometimes you really do need time to get to know a person. And sometimes that historically that was the places where people would just go to a bar or a concert or some kind of like social gathering or a barbecue or whatever it may be.
Family gathering.
Family gatherings, and you're just in proximity to new people. And not only do the people you might be attracted to get to know you, but like their friends do too. So it's like, oh, like I know somebody's perfect for you because I know you and I know them, so I think you'd be a good connection. And this third person ends up acting as like a trust broker in a way. That's like, well, how does she know she can trust this guy? Because she trusts this person that she's connecting him to. So a lot for women in particular, this is a safety thing. It's like with the dating apps, you can pretend to be whoever the hell you want to be. You can even if you meet on a first date, if you meet at a bar somewhere, you can be anybody you want to be. But if it's like you've met somebody, if you connect with someone through mutual friends, it's almost like a form of matchmaking, but it reduces the risk and likelihood of meeting the wrong person because you have somebody else kind of vetting them for you along the way. We've lost a lot of those. We lost like a lot of men are now, both men and women, men in particular are retreating into porn usage. Porn is getting ridiculous because less than like 50, 60 years ago, it was just Playboy magazines, God forbid. And it didn't constantly have like an infinite number of pages to it the way like porn websites do.
Yeah, you can get lost in the sauce versus like, okay, this is Hustler. Hustler has its market and it has so many pages and then it's done. Yeah. And then you hide it under your bed and you hope no one finds it other than
pretty much.
But I can't see what you're swiping on your phone, what you have access to on your camera, what advertisements are being pushed to you on social media or your Game Boy or your Xbox or any of your systems.
Thirst traps, things like that. And especially the other one for me, like it was porn video games pretty much. Like I was big into World of Warcraft for a long fucking time.
A lot of my friends, a lot of my male friends were, yeah. It almost kept them safe.
Yes, it's a what's the word? It's a like even pornography and video games and like any kind of addiction like that. It is a form of like coping towards like trying to get rid of a pain or discomfort you're not actually truly acknowledging. And the more that men become disconnected with themselves and their emotions, the more they lose vocabulary and connection to what they're actually feeling. The more they're going to be like, I can't put a word to this. Even if I could, I feel like I can't talk to anybody about it. So all I can do is push it down. So I'm going to use whatever coping mechanism I have to push it down, which could be drug use, alcohol, porn, weed, video games, even like sex. Sometimes workaholism is a common one. But with the safety thing, what was that?
This fidget spinner?
Yeah, anything like that. Yeah. And the safety thing is pretty accurate because it's really it's kind of misappropriating natural hormones that your body produces under certain circumstances, in my opinion. So a big one is dopamine. Like the games do a really fucking good job, even better than they ever have. Because I played original World of Warcraft, and now like the games today are insane. How perfectly timed and spaced out things are. Like the timing between questing and getting a reward and a daily reward, and has you basically stuck in like a dopamine loop.
It's not like that anymore?
Oh, it's worse. It's 10 times
worse. Okay.
It's really, they're getting really effing good about like timing. They know exactly what, because if the whole screen was just constantly exploding with lights and colors, you'd be like, this is too much. But if it was nothing, you'd also not be interested. It's this perfect little balance I have to figure out of like, how much time exactly do you need between hits before so we can just keep you perpetually going. Um,
Keep you in the zone.
yeah,
Absolutely.
and even with things like, so the World of Warcraft thing is funny because what a lot of video games do nowadays for a lot of men is it creates a false sense of accomplishment. It creates a sense of like community with people who are not going to judge you. Like your accomplishments are based on what you can accomplish in the game, regardless of what you look like. You can be
Mhm.
whoever the hell you want to be. I could be like a super jacked warrior murderer with like double axes. In real life, I'm just an average dude.
Right.
But out there, and then within that, even with like World of Warcraft, the big one was the end game content was like raiding. That was a big one for me, where it's like, oh, I feel like I'm part of something bigger. I feel like they need me to show up on raid day, whatever time we schedule in the week. And so
They're
within those
counting on me.
things, they're counting on me. Like they need me to be there, and it's hard to really easily replicate that in real life. Like way back in the day, caveman times, it's like we're going on the hunt. We need you to come with us, even if you're not the best. You're still going to be supporting us. So you have a job, you have a purpose here. We need you here for something. That's a big one that a lot of men nowadays are losing is a sense of like purpose in the grand scheme. It could be like if they don't have a relationship, they don't have kids. They're just like, what? Who am I to who? What do I do to who? What can I contribute to who? And maybe sometimes some guys will find it through video games. They're like, oh, I'm part of a big group online. I'm part of like this group that accomplished this really difficult thing.
I'm the leader. They need me to
Could be
organize.
the leader, or could be like the supporter, like the
I'm the
guys who are
wizard.
helping them.
You're the mage. Yeah.
Yeah, whatever it may be. And so, like one thing is the dopamine thing. It's a big one. Dopamine addiction is huge in video games. Another one though is like serotonin, which is basically like socializing. And if you're not very good at socializing in real life, you don't know how to converse with strangers and whatnot. You grow up super sheltered. Your parents basically say, just here's an iPad, here's a Game Boy, here's a Nintendo Switch, whatever it is, or here's Xbox. You meet all your friends on the internet, so you don't really have you kind of atrophy that skill of making friends in real life. And even then, sometimes like real life is just comparatively boring compared to how stimulating video games can be.
So that's a bad thing because even though I'm communicating with my team in World of Warcraft, right? I'm a leader, I'm the mage, I'm the healer, and they need me and they count on me. I'm conversing with those people in World of Warcraft. Why am I not able to make the connection in real life and connect with a girl or connect with others of the
Two
opposite
different
sex?
skills. And
Two
it's not
different.
necessarily a bad thing. Like there's plenty of people
Yeah,
who play games to decompress because they enjoy it. That's
yeah.
fine. Problem becomes when it becomes like it's literally inhibiting your ability to do other things in real life, or you're just completely turning into like a basement dwelling couch potato. You don't want to be, but it's the challenge is getting to a point where you can comfortably. You have to figure out. This is what I try to do with the coaching. Two things. One, you need a support system because very often when you're stepping into discomfort, what you really need is people around you that can kind of become like an extension of their nervous system to keep you grounded as you're going through the experience. So this ties back to the father thing from earlier. Realistically, what should have happened in every young boy's childhood growing up is that you go through progressively more difficult challenges in life that pushes you out of your comfort zone, but not so far that it traumatizes you. And over time, your nervous system, your capacity to handle difficult experiences gets bigger and bigger and bigger, inch by inch by inch. And then ideally, you're a full blown adult in your 20s or mid 20s, whatever, and you're able to just handle, like, oh, I know how to talk to a girl. I spent all the time in my teen years talking to girls. I know how to hold down a job. I know how to control my impulses. I know how to do all this stuff because, like, I had gradual exposure to it. Now we have a whole generation of kids. You see this a lot with like the college campuses. A lot of men that did not get the, for lack of better words, initiation. It's not necessarily exactly the correct word. Initiation into adulthood that you would have gotten, which is basically your first opportunity to experience discomfort and then be able to like tolerate it and move through it. Usually in proximity to somebody else guiding you through, usually a parent or a mentor of some sort.
I agree with you. I had a gentleman on the show, and his thing and his group and what he promotes is just like women have quinceañeras and they have a coming of age, a coming.
Mm-hmm.
You are a woman today, so now we need to t- make you do more and experience more because you are a woman today. His promotion is men need that same thing. So what he advocates for is men grandpa, dad, great grandpa, a good buddy, and we all take this young man almost like a Spartan
Yeah.
Spartan
Yeah.
initiation. and they take him out to the woods, and the grandfather gives him a sacred family heirloom, like maybe a nice watch, or maybe a family heirloom, that a ring that's been passed down from manhood to manhood, a manhood initiation. And they just spent, and all the men just spend time with that young man and say, today you are a man. uh, you are speaking to some very great points. A gentleman who has a great podcast I listen to, he says we need to find, what a lot of parents do is they dodge, they avoid the hard conversations, that you would. And I always talk about money, and I use money as an example, right? Parents say, "Oh, don't worry about that. You'll figure it out when you're older. Just anything that you need money for, just ask me, and I'll give it to you." That is avoiding what I need to really do. I need to place a stressor on you. I need to equip you. I need to allow you to go through those pain points of,
Yeah.
well, mom and dad, I still got bills and all my money's gone. Perfect. Let's talk about that. Versus, okay, let me fill in the gap and give you more money.
Mhm.
That's not the right answer. And what he does in his household with his kids is he not only allows his kids to have those moments where they're confused and they have questions, but he sometimes causes them on purpose. He, as a father,
Yeah.
he purposely puts his children in a controlled way in uncomfortable situations that should force them to go along a certain path. And if he sees them staring off the path, then he'll rewrite, he'll recorrect, or he'll stop, say, "Hey, stop, let's talk about this." And he forces those conversations some intuitively. And that engaged me. I love the idea of owning real estate, and I would love to be able to place my child in a property that my wife and I own, and but allow them to experience what it's like to pay bills. But and what the mistake we do is we think that, oh, a child needs to stay in a child's place. I'm not going to have the conversation. I'm going to avoid the conversation until this child is now 18, an adult by law. But you shouldn't let the city or state or government in your household anyway. But I need to purposely cause certain conversations and stimulate your brain so that when I put you in this house that your mom and I own and we expose you to bills, I you have an understanding of what this means. And now when you work that 9 to 5 job and you're paying bills in the house that we own, you're not just paying bills just arbitrarily, but you understand why. And the other thing, I had no concept of bills. I had a fair understanding because I've been working since the age of 10. I'm now 37. I've been working since I was 10 years old. And what never happened was I would see the bills on the table. And one time I'm looking at a prospectus. This is a prospectus that my parents had opened 401k plans and kids savings plans for my siblings, but not me. I had no idea what I was looking at, but no one had the conversation with me what
Mhm.
this document on our kitchen table was. And those are the types of conversation we often hide bills and hide those events from our kids, when I think we need to be having those conversations along the way in a guided progressive state.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I really truly believe that, because I think you do more harm than good when you launch a child and send them off to college, and that's when they're having their first life experiences. That's when they're having their first credit card, which they're gonna max out 9 times out of 10, 10 out of 10, they're gonna max credit card out. Or I had a young lady call into the show. She's like, my son, she had 3 kids. She had 2 girls, 1 boy. The 2 daughters were doing well. She was doing well. The kids are in school. They're about to achieve their master's degrees in higher education. I think one was like a dentist and the other was like a lawyer. And the son is in the basement. And the son is in the basement playing video games, getting that dopamine hit, and he's not launching, failure to launch.
Mhm.
And so I just asked the question, ma'am, did you expose your son to the same things that you allowed your daughters to experience? So when you go to the grocery store, you brought your son along. No, I let him play on his iPad. I let him play video games because it was just so easier to deal with him that way versus having a hard conversation like, no, he needs to know how to eat himself. He needs to know how to feed himself. So I want to go back to your point of influencers. I am passionate about this because our men are not winning. And just like you, and just like the company that you're a part of, I want to push back on the paradigm. But you're so right in so many aspects. The rise of the alpha male
Mhm.
influencers, is that I hate it. I understand the aggressive approach, but I hate it. Is the rise of alpha male influencers helping men or is it harming them? What are your thoughts?
Probably like a mixture.
A mixture.
I don't think it's good, but I do think that if you kind of like the phrase that nature abhors a vacuum, men have a natural inclination, not say inclination, they have a natural like aggression about them that can go a lot of different directions if it's not aimed properly. And it can go inwards, it can go outwards. You know, you have guys who are, going pulling on like, killing sprees and whatnot, going to mass murders, taking their own lives, three to one compared to men to women. Suicide rates globally for men versus women. There is a certain like aggression and desire to do things. Young little boys, for example, like I talk to any school teacher, you know, pre-K to kindergarten, the first through like 12, like boys are just a totally different animal than girls, especially when like hormones kick online. And so what young boys need is they need usually a male figure, a male mentor, to help them channel that energy properly in a healthy direction. It's like it's okay to be aggressively confident. It's aggressive to be working on a goal you want to achieve. It's not okay to be, like aggressive towards people around you because like no, they did something, there's something wrong to you or whatever it may be. But it's misplaced aggression, but it's totally natural. And I think what the alpha male influencers are doing essentially is just stepping in because there's been such a vacuum in that space for such a long time for men to have somebody basically like Andrew Tate, perfect example.
Oh gosh.
He's like the first guy in a long fucking time, aside from other public figures, that basically said like, yeah, your life is shit because it's your fault, but you know what? You can fucking do something about it. And I'm here to tell you, like, if you get off your ass, start working out, start making some money, like you can do it. Like just go fucking like go out and get it. And I'll show you how to some degree. But it kind of became like a role model to a lot of men to be like, oh wow, like it actually somebody's actually listening to us in our struggles.
Yeah.
Like we're trying to ask questions and we're like, hey, I'm a guy and I'm struggling. And immediately they go like, you're a guy, you're doing totally fine. Shut the fuck up. Like women are the ones struggling. Men suck. Are doing fine. But there was like these guys were some of the first guys that basically stepped up and said like, we hear you, and we don't have the best answers, but we at least hear you.
Yeah.
And now a lot of people going like, oh, these bad influences. Like, yeah, but what other influences do they have? Like there were, like not the greatest influences way back in the day. I think of like John Wayne and things like that. But like there's been such a kind of like a vacuum, like a vacuum in that space. And this is where you get guys like Jordan Peterson, if you're a fan of him. Other guys too who are stepping into like Jocko Willing, Jordan Peterson, David Goggins, Chris Williamson, personalities like that are kind of stepping in to say, okay, there's a better path you could probably take if you want to follow this one instead. But at least for the time being, Andrew Tate just stepped into a vacuum that was like he didn't blow up because he was trying to. He blew up because like the need was there, and it was the only person who signed up for the job.
Makes sense. Yeah, you said it. You said Andrew Tate, y'all. Oh. But you're right. You're right.
At the very least, they're bringing attention to the problem.
They are the Kevin Samuels of the world, right? The Andrew Tates, the Passport Bros. These things are speaking to that void that men have gone unheard for so long. I don't advise any man seeking advice on what to be a man calling into a woman's podcast. Like that doesn't make sense to me. You need men speak to men, and in that same respect, I would never sit there and tell my daughter I know what kind of guys this is. That's why I think prearranged marriages used to struggle, because I can't tell my daughter what she needs. I know the type of guy I would like her to be around, but prearranged marriages, just like what you said, it needs to be a community effort. It needs to be a community involvement, not just, well, I think he's the best suitor. He has a good job. He has a good car. He has a good house. He can support you. That I don't think that's the necessary things. There needs to be other considerations taken in to finding her a potential suitor. So I'm with you in that regard. I'm with you in that regard. Do you think the provider protector archetype is outdated, or is it still essential?
I think it's kind of wired into our DNA, whether people want it to be or not. I don't think it's going to be outdated necessarily, but I think it's going to change roles, or it already is kind of changing roles, and a lot of people are just having a hard time adjusting to that role swap. Like the protector archetype, it's like, yeah, it used to be like you're going to physically protect me from the elements, but now there's also like emotional protection and emotional safety and financial protection and financial safety and, like social and whatever it may be, like levels of protection that many women feel. You ever talk to women like in femininity, it's like you heard this phrase relaxing into her feminine. It's like, oh, I can't relax if I don't feel safe. And a lot of times, you said this before, like you didn't feel safe in your own household in case you're coming home to like a vitriolic wife. But sometimes it could be, sometimes I can't say it's always, but sometimes it could be that like the woman is responding due to your lack of emotional clarity in the household and like in structure by becoming more animated and masculine as a result, but doesn't know how to express it, doesn't know this is what's actually happening to her. And the provider thing, yeah, financially, there are a lot of studies coming out talking about how like couples that divorce, it's very common that the man is making less money. But if you dig deeper into the numbers, it's actually not just because he's making less money. It's usually he's making less money, which is making him feel very insecure, and his insecurity is turning into resentment, which is causing conflict in the relationship, causing them to fight more often, or maybe even in some cases. It was a study I remember hearing talking about how like, there was like a the numbers are probably gonna be wrong, but it was something like a 10% increase in the likelihood of male erectile dysfunction if the man made less than the woman did.
Mm,
To the
really?
point that it's like it's so entrenched in some men's identity of being the provider that it's like if I can't provide, it stresses me out to the point that I literally can't get sexually aroused because I'm so stressed out about the fact that I'm not fulfilling my role. But yeah, there's also plenty of guys I've spoken to guys in my podcast who are like stay-at-home fathers because their wife just happens to have like a super awesome career and is just financially crushing it, but they've managed to kind of figure it out where it's like even if she's still a career woman, she still comes home and gets to be mom, and he's still dad, and the two of them still have that masculine feminine dynamic in like their own private time, and even in the case of the household, whatever it may be, and like they're just happy in those roles because they've negotiated like she could be the provider, but he's still like the protector in some sense, or she could be the provider, but he provides other things like certain emotional stability in the household that she doesn't have to do because he's taking care of it while she's doing other things. So I don't think it's outdated. I think it's still essential. I think it's just also a matter of figuring out like what works for you and making sure as men that it's you can find other things that are you can attach your identity to besides just how much money you make.
So and perfect. You're saying absolutely what I agree to. I think provision and provider um is more than just money.
Yeah.
Like you said, I think a couple can still thrive even if the woman, like this lady tried to argue on my Facebook page. I have like 21,000 followers on Facebook, and she tried to say that um she asked all her girlfriends at work, and it was like, ladies, is it fair that you have to go to work and come home and cook, clean, do the dishes, do all the things? And so I posed a question to her. I said, okay, switch with me, right? Switch with me. If it's so much to do, then switch with your guy. Let the guy stay home, cook, clean, do laundry, watch the kids, jump, take them to football practice, take them to soccer, and then you go home and all you have to do is worry about provision. The women wouldn't sign up for that either. Right? If it's so easy, then switch with me. If you think provision is so easy, then switch, and I'll show you that I'm still a provider, even though I don't make as much as you. Right? And I push back on women all the time about that kind of conversation, because if you just hold me on monetarily what I can provide, then I'll lose every time. There's more to a man than provision than what I can do for you monetarily. There's an essence that I bring into this household that can equate to dollars and cents. There's a level beyond that, and I think women are not meeting men there, right? And that's why they the only thing that they have, just like what you said, they're thinking about future. Can I live comfortably if he has enough house? Well, how do you live comfortably? To her is, does he make enough money? Can I stay at home? Can I do the things? And vice versa. I posed a question to another girl on that same post. I said, okay, if you don't want to work and he stay at home, why not? Well, I'm more equipped. I know plenty of fathers that can handle their kids, that can do laundry, and they don't complain about it. I mean, there are single fathers just like they're single mothers, and those fathers, I don't see any man complaining about operating in his femininity. Men just do what needs to be done.
Mm.
The boy, the girl has to get to school. They get to school, and that's just it. Men don't argue or complain about being an adult, right? And
Yeah.
Your thoughts, please.
Well, I think a lot of men internalize the stress, and that stress they don't have a
But we don't
proper
say it.
outlet. Yeah, I'm just making a point to say like a lot of men have a mountain of undigested stress and frustrations that can just backlog, and then one day you just say I can't do it anymore, and you check out. Um, I think there's a lot of even there's like research coming out around this, and it's funny because I think what's happening is I think what we've done as a society in modern times is we're trying to drill down to this is like the metaphor I make. It's like we're trying to drill down to like the core essence of society and culture and civilization, all that stuff, and we're trying to get down to like that core to prove that it's all completely malleable from like the ground up. Like all of it, all the way down to the bottom, is completely up to us. And I think what keeps happening historically is that when you drill far enough, eventually you just hit this like impenetrable layer called nature. And
Mm,
nature just basically says like you can push as hard as you want. The harder you push, the harder it's going to ricochet backwards. And there's elements to it. It's how ways you can negotiate, like being in a long-term relationship. But and the stay-at-home father thing works fine, again, depending on the context of the relationship and what they negotiate, how they want to do it, or what they want to do. But there's a really interesting study that was talked about this, and it was talking about I think it was like the Netherlands or Denmark, something like that. And they basically had a married couple, and they were testing in like a laboratory setting to see how quickly they would respond to certain stimulus in the environment that was going on. And what they showed was like they had a newborn baby, I think, and they had like a sound system set up. And the mother involuntarily responded to the cries of the newborn baby like a million times faster than the dad did while they were both asleep.
right.
And women hear this and they go, "Of course, oh, he's asleep. Okay, yeah, sure, whatever. He's bullshitting. He's pretending to be asleep because he doesn't want to take care of the kid." Consequently, weird sounds outside the house, like outside the window, trigger the dad 10 times faster than mom did.
Mm.
So the idea is like, it's not that we don't care, like we're wired to prioritize certain other things that you're not, and vice versa. Doesn't mean we can't help with the kids. Doesn't mean, but it's like most men's concern is like, is my house protected and safe? Most women's concern is like, are my kids doing well? And this is where like women staying home with the kids, usually in very, very, very early years, is more to do with like there's just a natural biological, psychological systems that go on that women are naturally more equipped to handle kids when they're young. But the flip side of that is that as kids get older, you said this perfectly earlier, one of the roles of the father, one of the roles of like paternal male figures in a child's life is to try to like intentionally disrupt their nervous system to have them practice self-regulation.
Yes.
Because growing when they're babies, it's pure co-regulation. Like when something upsets them, they can't calm themselves down. They need mom or dad to like hold them until they calm down. And ideally, mom and dad also stays calm while they're freaking out, and eventually they just kind of their nervous system is back to normal. And what's doing in that moment, what's happening is that their nervous system is basically like imprinting the information. Oh, if something bad happens, somebody will take care of me. I'll be safe. I'll be good. And again, like more often than not, there's like those super like very, very, very young infantile years. Mom is usually naturally more equipped to handle the problems that come along in co-regulation, and it's very soothing, very maternal, unconditional. Later on is when dad says, "I'm going to try to intentionally piss you off, and your job is to try to calm yourself down." Or like, I'm gonna push your button. This is exactly what you see when fathers play with little kids.
Yeah.
Like they're
Yeah.
throwing them up in the air, or they're wrestling with them, or they're doing like you're trying to push their boundaries a little
I'm
bit.
exposing you to fear.
Yeah,
If I throw you up,
even like the baby toss. It's like for a few seconds, you're like, "Oh shit, is he gonna catch me?" And your nervous system freaks out for a second, and then he catches you again. You're like, "Oh, okay," but it's little micro practice of just like a little bit of discomfort, a little bit of discomfort. And there's a good quote in the book, "The Body Keeps a Score" by Bessel van der Kolk. I forget if he was referencing another researcher, and the quote was like, "A mother strokes and a father pokes." But it's art, even throughout all of like evolutionary history, most cultures and societies used female menstruation as like the demarcation point of maturity. It's like you're now a woman because you can technically get pregnant.
yeah. And you're experiencing
But
pain, and you're tolerating it, and how you manage it,
yes,
and you're still you're not keeled over in a corner somewhere bleeding to death. Like you're okay. I'm experiencing this, and I'm still moving forward.
yeah, and usually you have the women to kind of like guide you through it and teach you about what's happened and work through it, what we do, da, da, da. But the reason a lot of cultures had to essentially had to invent and discover male initiation is we figured out pretty early on if you don't intentionally expose young men to difficult circumstances, they're not going to grow up, and their nervous system is going to stay locked at the age that they last really had those challenges. That's exactly why you see like people in their 30s, 40s, and 50s talking like 10-year-olds sometimes, because like psychologically they did not get the like training they needed to get their nervous, like physically their body's here, but their nervous system is down here, and they need to work with somebody or do coaching or therapy or things like that to that's my cat to work on expanding that nervous system function. It's like, even with something as simple as like talking to girls. Some guys have like they don't have any experience. They have no skill set towards it because they were never exposed to it. They didn't get to watch it. They didn't try it out. Whatever it might be, stuck in their basement, or whatever. And it's like if you take a guy who's never talked to a woman before, never had a conversation, and you say, "Go talk to her right now," he's going to completely shut down. It's like that PTS thing. Like it's too much for his nervous system because he's never done it before. He has no experience. And there's nothing necessarily wrong with him. It's just like he lived a life where he was just able to dodge that every single time for like 30 years. And so when you take guys who need to essentially start working through these stepping out of their comfort zone or discomfort, what you do is start incrementally like challenging their current comfort zone. Like, oh, you don't have to go up to the girl. I want you to just like walk up and stand within like a few feet of her in public. And your body might freak out. It's fine.
Mhm.
Take some breaths, calm yourself down, self-regulate. Cool, that's easy now. All right, now I want you to go ask her name. What? I should just go ask her name. That's it. Ask her name. Be like, oh, cool. My name's Mike. All right, have a nice day, and walk the fuck away. It's fine. But that's taking that. That's the analogous thing of like growing up. You're supposed to go through those little micro difficulties and get better and better and better. But if you didn't get it, you have to do it to yourself in adulthood. And that's
Absolutely.
ideally what older men would have done for you. They would have like comfortably, nicely, in a contained way, beat the crap out of you in some way. Usually through an initiatory process, or it could be through like even people like in the Jewish faith, bar mitzvahs and bat mitzvahs.
Yep.
You're,
Manhood.
I think it's 13 years old, 12, 13 years old. You're not a full blown adult yet. You're like an apprentice adult,
Right.
but you're starting to take on gradually more responsibility as the years go. But that is like a major turning point of like, this is going to be really challenging, but it's going to show you what you're capable of doing. Because if
I,
nobody shows you, you're never going to grow into it.
absolutely. So this is twofold what you're saying, and it's absolutely powerful. I remember reading the autobiography. It's a combination of all the titans of industry. So Henry Ford, J.P. Morgan, Rockefeller, all those titans of industries who were a part of the Industrial Revolution. Some of them.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I remember reading about was J.P. Morgan. Um, in the olden days, in the aristocrat at the age of men and manhood, one of the things is to expose them to enough, like you said, experiences. And so, JP Morgan wanted his son to travel the world and be worldly, go hunting, experience life. So he was very worldly, and he had different stressors and experiences that he was accustomed to. And then JP Morgan he was getting older, and he gave his son what the son thought was his entire wealth, his entire fortune. It crushed him to the point where he was sick. Right, he gave his son, I think, like a fraction of the company, enough of the company so that he could take it over while JP Morgan worked his way into retirement. And when he deposited the money into his son's bank account, his son was like, he got ill, he got sick, he had to be hospitalized, he was panicking, he was frantic, and JP Morgan had to take back over the company and hospitalize his son because it was too much, because he had a massive stress, and it was only a fraction of his wealth. He didn't actually give his entire fortune to his son to try and test him to in preparation for taking over the company. The second thing I hear when you say that of the provider protector archetype is when I think we do our kids a disservice when men become 18, 21, whatever age, and they're still at home. I come from an island where the men are 30, 40, 50 years old, still living in mom and dad's house, right? And I think we do our kids a disservice again because we haven't exposed them to those pressure points early on.
Mhm.
And so you have this man, now seemingly man, who's not prepared or ill prepared for life. I think we should be moving our children out, and not allowing them to stay home forever till eternity. Um, but along the way, I need to be guiding you,
Mhm.
right? So I don't believe in just forcing a kid to move out. And I hear too many stories of men, their moms do that. Hey, you're a man, get out my house. I don't know what to do with you, figure it out. I don't think that's okay either. I think we need to prepare our men, give them the tools, stress test them throughout their adolescence. So when they become 18 or 21, they're more equipped to handle moving out on their own.
Yeah, the other
So
side of that coin, actually, what's funny, you mentioned about single moms, is actually there's a huge problem nowadays with young men being conditioned by mom to be the man that she needed and keeping him around
yes,
the house.
have you seen data on that? Yes.
I don't know if I've seen data, but I actually have people I grew up with who I watched. I'll be brutally honest. My mother passed away when I was 25, about
I'm
10,
sorry.
11 years ago. And it ended up being a major trigger that led me down this whole pathway towards like the coaching thing that I'm doing now. Because I realized like if she hadn't passed away, I probably would have still been living in my parents' basement even to this day. Like she really really coddled me, and it wasn't until she was gone that I really had to like grow the fuck up in a nice way. And it was like then that's when I really started to like unpack my life and look around like, oh my god, it's happening everywhere. It's not even just me. There's like literally books written about it. There's like this weapon, podcasts and books and weapon all this stuff. Like it's crazy how come even in psychology research there's a lot of evidence. You've heard of this concept called puer aeternus?
I have not.
It's Latin for the eternal boy.
Hmm.
Basically, Carl Jung, psychologist, and a couple of his colleagues, years ago, they knew about this problem of like men that refuse to essentially like not refuse, but they just don't grow up,
They didn't have what they needed.
like Peter Pan syndrome, basically. Yeah,
Hmm.
they just refuse to grow up, and part of it is just because it's a number of different things. It's like sometimes it could be environmental, sometimes it could just be stubbornness, sometimes it could be a lack of a healthy form of initiation that kind of shows them what they're good at and what they could be. Not everyone's going to be like that. Part of the problem with that idea of like the eternal child thing is it's this fear of differentiation. Because when you're a kid, you can be anything.
Yeah.
Literally, you have no idea what you're going to be. But then when you grow up, you kind of have to like pick a lane, stick to it,
Right.
and it
Right.
kind of that collapsing of infinite potential can be difficult, especially if it doesn't like you're not really sure is exactly what you're good at, what you want to do, what you can take pride in doing. But I think it's kind of a bit of like a I don't know what the word is, but it's kind of like a funnel you go through where you kind of realize like, oh, there's actually certain things that I'm naturally good at that if I could become pretty good at to turn into a skill that could be marketable to people outside, I actually would enjoy it a lot more. But yeah, the idea being that like we've known about men not essentially having a hard time maturing for a long time. It's been going on for quite a while. But the women, yeah, the moms turning their sons into their surrogate husbands.
Their
That's been
boyfriends, the
that's
man of the
been
house.
yeah, that's been going on even since like not Carl Jung, what's his name? Freud. Freud just learned about that. It was like the Oedipal complex and things like that. But that's a whole problem too. Is like women, some moms kind of kicking dad out of the house, and partly maybe because he's emotionally dysregulated, maybe he's a threat, a danger, or just multi generationally where they're hearing information from their friends basically saying like, oh, it's because like like all men are shit, so just get rid of him, blah, 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 kick him out of the house, and all of a sudden their son doesn't have that healthy male role model to help articulate and guide them, and then the whole process just repeats itself. When they go out, they get somebody pregnant, they don't know how to be a proper father, they end up ditching and grading another single mother, and then it just keeps repeating.
It perpetuates. It perpetuates.
Yeah,
But mom,
it's both sides' problem. It's not like women's fault specifically. It's both sides. There's problems there.
it I agree with you. It's all of us, right? But I've experienced that, right? I've experienced that. I've experienced where I was dating a young woman who had a 7-year-old daughter. The biological daughter was the biological father was not active or
Mm.
involved in the daughter's life. And when we dated, the mom asked me. She said, "Even if you and I break up, I still see you as a positive male influence in my child's life, and I would like you to continue to be a part of it." And we agreed. We signed. We actually did like a little kind of agreement, And we said, yeah, I'll agree to that. Even if you and I break up, I'll still continue to check on your daughter, support your daughter, and be that male role model in her life. We
Mm-hmm.
break up, and I try. I reach out, I text, I call, and I say, hey, I would love to take your daughter to dinner, or I'd love to take her to roller skating. I'd love to take her for a mani pedi. And the mom blocked, blocked,
Mm-hmm.
blocked, blocked every single scenario, right? Because we are now no longer together, and the mom is upset by that, but I'm still doing the things that she appreciated that I did for her. And because she's no longer getting that or reciprocating that or receiving that anymore, now it's you don't get access to even my daughter. So you're breaking the agreement. And it pains me when I hear, hey, you ostracized the dad, you kicked the dad out due to whatever reason, right? If he's a menace, or if you see him as a danger, understand, that's fine. This child still needs a male example. This child still needs male influence, right? Because again, like you said, you're gonna raise, you're gonna nurture, you're gonna protect, and this child is not gonna be exposed to certain things. And then the mom's, like you said, she's gonna make her your boyfriend. She's having emotional incest. This is now my protector, and I'm gonna raise him to be the best man. The best man for who? You? Oh, you're gonna raise him to be the man you never had. That's not a man, right? That's your boyfriend, and but that's your child as well. And you've now crashed two things that should have never been in the same space. And
Yeah.
now he's confused, right? He's crashing out because you're and I have a theory. I don't have any data behind it. I have a theory that I think that's why some men um they dislike themselves. They dislike themselves because mom is saying you got to take out the trash, you got to mow the lawn, you got to do all these back breaking physical things, you got to pump my own gas, you got to take me out on a date, you got to get dressed up and pay for things for mom. I think men get agitated, especially with no example around them to explain that or have a conversation with that. I think they get upset by that, and they say, you know what, I'm opting out. I opt out. I identify as this tree. I'm no longer a man. I don't want to be identified as a man because all this thing is just is backbreaking, and I'm not getting any explanation behind it. And you're making me do all these physically demanding things simply because of my gender. That is not good. And I have a suspicion that that's what's causing some of our men to just exit and just give up because they're being exposed to men, women, mothers who are just overloading them with a bunch of responsibilities with no explanation as to why. And now they're just like, I opt out. I
You
give up.
mean when you say opt out, you mean like suicide?
Suicide, confusion, or I'm asexual. I now identify as neither man nor woman. Now these are my pronouns. I now identify as this tree or whatever. I they're not getting an explanation as to what manhood look like. I'll give you an example. I had a woman say it on another podcast. She's like, I train my son to open doors for all women, and I said that's wrong, right? That doesn't make your son a gentleman because he opens doors for all women that he sees. What you're setting your son up to is to be taken advantage of. And he needs to understand that there are women out there who are worth his time and there are other women who are not. And he needs to know the difference. So when you train your son to open your doors for you, grandma, the girl down the street, the girl in the corner store, the girl, you're opening your son to be taken advantage of because there are women who will leverage him and utilize that feature and utilize that because I know women who only go out, they're not dating these men, they're not in relationships with their men, and they're barely friends with the guy, but they will go out with your son because he's going to pay for the dinner because you've
Mm-hmm.
raised him to always pay for the lady. He needs an explanation as to when and why he's doing that, not just arbitrarily, oh, you're out with a lady, you pay for the dinner. Why? He needs an explanation. He's lacking pieces that the mom can never give him. I think it's wrong to train your son to open doors for all women because I think there are certain things that need to remain sacred to mom has failed to connect with the opposite sex. And so because mom has failed to connect with the opposite sex, she's now put this young man in the position that she's never had. And now this young man is going about doing the same services for other women. And not all those women are going to love him or care about him. And now he's wasting his time. That need he needs an explanation, and a mom can't give him that.
And then
Thoughts?
opening doors for people is like just like common courtesy. But I think what you're alluding to
But too
is,
many women expect it. When a woman expects me to open her door, you've removed my ability to be generous. It's no longer a generosity gesture anymore. It's an
Mhm.
expectation. And my son needs to understand that women who have an expectation of me opening the door need to reconcile within themselves. Your inability to have a partner is not my fault, and you should not put me in a position that is typically occupied by a boyfriend. My son is not your boyfriend. Why does he have to open the door for you? Why does he always have to take you out to dinner and pay for it? This is not your boyfriend. But because that woman has failed to connect with the opposite sex, she's putting others in position to fill that void that she has failed in.
Hmm.
I constantly run it. I have met women. Great grandma is single, mom is single, the or great grandma is single, great grandma is single, grandma is single, mom is single, and the current lady is single. What are the chances that that daughter is going to be single? You have four generations of women who have failed to connect with the opposite sex. You can't tell me in within that dynamic that these women can now teach this man how to be a man. And now those women are all perpetuating the same cycle.
Oh yeah, it's generational wisdom being passed down. Well, the wisdom,
Yes.
not really wisdom. Yeah, that's a very common thing we see. Well, so have you ever heard of nice guy syndrome?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what you're alluding to is men that were basically raised under certain circumstances to become like the what's the word, like the pack mule of the women in their life. I guess is the way to say it.
That's a good way to say it. That's a
and
polite way to say it.
and it's some men are just like, listen, I'm happy being a pack mule if you also just appreciate me and admire me and give me something in reciprocation. Fine. But a lot of men have learned like I have to do these things, like you said before about men checking out and like the suicide, asexuality, all that stuff. Yeah, the problem in there is that they're basically conditioning their sometimes well, there's sometimes like even if there's a dad in the picture, if dad's doing it to mom,
Hmm.
he'll the son will still watch it and repeat it himself.
Absolutely.
And
And then
so
he'll do it to mom when dad isn't present.
yeah, and basically it's there's variable versions of this. There's also environments where like in that case, mom is the emotional like hostage hold keeper of the household. There are situations where dad does the same thing too. It's a different dynamic. But in this case, what we're talking about is like like men that have learned I have to do things for you in order to get what I want, and I have to put on this facade and be this person rather than be more authentic about what I'm interested in to get what I want from you. I did this. God, I did this for fucking years. Um,
Did what
like
for
the nice
years?
guy thing. What was that?
You were the nice guy for years?
Oh yeah, yeah. I did that shit when I was growing up when I was younger. Yeah, yeah. I had
you
a.
you don't do it today.
There's probably like gonna be like micro moments, but not nearly like the same degree. And the idea is more being confident to speak your mind, like do what you want to do, and like I said, like leading with presence rather than saying I need to make sure you're okay or else I'm not gonna be okay. Versus I'm okay, I'll help you however you need to be, but your job is to make sure you're okay by taking care of yourself.
Knowing what you know now, would you do it then? Knowing what you know now, would you still have done what of being the nice guy back then?
No, no, I don't think it works out for anyone in the long run. Because the
It does.
problem is you're training each other into behaviors that ironically you both are not going to be happy with in the long run.
Absolutely. I know women who have said, I will go out. She has two friends. She has two male friends, right? And one guy says, "Hey, I'm your friend. I'm not paying for every time we go out." And the woman said, "Well, I go out with men who only pay for me." And she's neglecting this guy over here who chooses not to pay every time she go out. That is what I want my son to avoid. I want my
Yeah,
son
everyone
to
should avoid
avoid that,
it.
and avoid women like that, avoid people like that who think like that. Like, oh, the only reason I go out with you is because you always pay. The only reason she's entertaining you is because you always pay for dinner. I need my son to find value in himself and find strength in himself and say, that's not respectable. When's the last time she paid for you? When's the last time you have gone through something? You lost your mom, and then she said, "Oh, well, that's tough. I'm sorry, condolences," and never take you out. But yet you've been there for birthdays, holidays, Christmas, Kwanzaa, after parties, when she's sobering, when she's drunk out with some other guy, and now that guy broke her heart and she's sobbing on your shoulders. When did she do that for you? If you're not getting that, I need my son to differentiate between the two.
I think there's an interesting, yeah, I do think there is knowing your value, and both men and women, men in particular in this case, knowing your value and knowing when a person, it could be a woman, it could also be your friends, are stringing you along and using you rather than really
Yes,
reciprocating that. What's funny, you mentioned a second ago about like, crying on the shoulder and whatnot. She might do it for you, but can you do it to her? Depending on the situation, like sometimes it's not always I think it's not the best move. There's a lot of stories of men who have emotionally opened up to women and then they end up leaving them or end up running
absolutely,
away.
absolutely.
And there's a whole line of reasoning I can theorize as to why that is too. But for the most part, yeah, it's a matter of trying to really like make sure you know like where a person stands in your life and being okay with whatever they decide to stand at. It's like like myself, I had women in my past who I was like, hey, I kind of like you, and they're like, yeah, I don't see you that way. I'm like, cool, I'm gonna stay around for a while and hope you change your mind.
You
Rather than be like, okay, you don't like me, cool, I'll go find somebody else. I respect it. You have your opinion. I'm not gonna sit here and wait for you. It's fine. And even there were actually was women in my past that like or like high school, like I like you. I don't really see you that way, but I'll still be friends. I'm like, oh, okay, it sucks. Years later, matured, got older, got into really good shape, got my shit together, met up again. She's like, wow, damn, you're hot now. I was like, all right, cool. You're allowed to just different opinions of different circumstances, who you are. For whatever reason, way back then, she wasn't interested in me. And then years later, I was a different person. Like, this I'm into. Okay. But to
agree.
not be like bitter and resentful towards women for not liking you for who you are. And this is what the nice guy thing is like, we refer to it as like covert contracts. It's
Hmm.
the idea of like, I'm doing this thing for you with the unspoken expectation of getting something in return.
Hmm.
Could be affection, could be a relationship, could be sex, could be whatever it is. And the more you don't give it to me, from me just constantly pouring into you, the more you're gonna give it to me, the more I'm just gonna get pissed off and just start like beating myself up and hating you and resenting you and all this stuff. When in reality, you're doing it to yourself
Absolutely.
because
Yeah,
she's
yeah,
telling you she's not interested. Move on, find somebody
yeah.
else.
You need to leave. You need to
Yeah.
leave. It's so good. It's so good. I I want to talk about passport bros. I want to talk about passport bros for a minute. How do you explain the rise of passport bros, Kevin Samuels, and men seeking relationships abroad? I have a theory. I'd love to hear yours.
There was something I wanted to mention earlier, and it kind of ties into this a little bit, which is interesting. Was there was studies showing that at universities, where this is one of the problems that's actually happening right now with women rising up the socioeconomic ladder so much, is that it's literally conflicting with like innate biology. At universities where the female population is larger than the male population, hookup culture is more prevalent. But if you reverse it, long-term relationships are more prevalent.
At where the men are the predominant.
Yeah, there's more men than women. You have more long-term relationships because the men are essentially like guarding their partners. But if the men have more options, the women have to compete with each other. So then hookups become more popular. So asking like which of this which does each sex actually really want? Especially if you like which sex does each want in the context of like taking a bunch of late teens, early 20s, hormoned out of their mind idiots with alcohol, throw them in a room together and see what happens. Like, yeah, the guys are going to be like, I just want to get laid constantly by as much as I can because I'm just
Mhm.
naturally competitive, I'm dominant, I'm status seeking. And the women are going to be basically like, well, I want like the right guy who's going to stick with me for a long time. And even this ties back into like like biology and evolution, how we have conflicting mating strategies. On the one hand, like men basically say like I need to get as many women pregnant as possible, and women basically say I need to find the best guy possible because I can only get pregnant once per 9 months plus a long-term dependency period to that.
Mhm.
And so even in colleges now, which is kind of not that it's a good or bad thing, it just is that universities where there's a larger female population than male population, hookup culture runs rampant. But if you reverse it, long-term committed relationships are very stable.
So you think men are seeking more? We're seeking populations where women are predominant.
I'm saying that if you screw with the population levels between men and women, certain behaviors start to pop up on on an aggregate level. So even in the context of like passport bros and men seeking relationships abroad,
We're
They're
trying to increase our
previously
numbers or chances.
previously they're really like it was kind of like you have to just go with who you have in your proximity to you. Before we had like cars and airplanes and mass instant travel and whatnot, it was like you just find somebody in town that you kind of like, you get along with, and just pair up, and you're good for life. That's it. But with passport bros, yeah, I think what the problem there is that the population of women in the United States, in particular, are it's just becoming. It's a combination of things. I think there are some men that just don't know how to stand into a different role, a protective provider role. But there's also no shortage of much more, like we'll say, masculine women. We're a little bit just not really like traditional in certain aspects and certain things. That is leading a lot of these. Usually in this case, it's usually higher end men who are very like financially successful and whatnot, who can afford to just travel the world and find a wife in a different country because they're looking for more traditional partners. And usually it's because like they themselves are just crushing it in their careers or their finances. Or they're just like, I don't need like another person to bring an income in. I just need somebody to like take care of my kids and like take care of the house while I'm out.
That's I can see that. You want? Would you like to hear my thoughts?
Go for it. Go for it.
Let me ask for permission. My thoughts are: I think men are the American culture has gotten very toxic. The American culture has gotten very non-nurturing to men. And so I think what men are doing is we are going where we are appreciated, where there are cultures of women who are brought up with the mindset to value a woman. Just like explained earlier, when I have great grandma and mom and this young lady, several generations of women who have failed to either connect with the opposite sex or maintain a monogamous relationship in marriage, right? Due to whatever
Mm-hmm.
reason. When you have that many generations of women still perpetuating the cycle of do what you got to do, take care of yourself, don't do for a man more than he does for you, all those things, I think men are exiting and they're going to culture. I met a gentleman in the military. He's from Africa, like hardcore Africa. He only dates Japanese women. And I
Mm-hmm.
asked him why, right? And I asked him why. And he said, Marcus, I could do better by just showing you. And he showed me. And we were in Japan and he was dating a Japanese girl. And he didn't text the girl for the whole day. And the girl's texting him, what's wrong? What's wrong? And he finally texted her back and said, I'm not feeling well. Within 30 minutes, we're at his apartment watching his big screen TV. She knocks on the door. He says, Marcus, go answer the door. I open the door. It's her. Not only her, it's her with groceries and a bouquet of flowers.
Mm.
And she comes in, gives him the flowers, and goes to the kitchen and starts making him dinner and soup because he said he didn't feel better. There's cultures of women, there's pockets of women that are still brought up with the understanding and appreciation for men, and men are gravitating to those communities. That's what I think is happening, and why we're and in connection to the mindset. Hey, Kevin Samuels, Passport Bros, the gentleman, the masculine alpha male guy, we're gravitating to where we are being served. And so there are races and ethnicities where a man is valued differently other than the women here in the culture. And we migrate, we move.
Yeah,
Thoughts,
I agree
opinions.
with that. Yeah, I think it's becoming a little bit. We kind of have a bit of an overcorrection. Like I think there was. So part of the reason that women ended up really entering the workforce en masse partly was because back in World War One, World War Two, there was just a really strong need for more labor to actually fund the war efforts. But two was that a lot of the traditional roles and things that women would have taken up got outsourced to technology. Like for example, back in like the Jewish faith, I think in certain communities in like in parts of Europe, there was I think it was like a one week a month. There was something called the Nidda. I'm probably butchering the name, where it was basically when she was menstruating, when she was having her period, and it was like a whole place where she would go to like make sure she was taken care of and cleaned up because they didn't have modern feminine hygiene products like we do now. We had like tampons, pads, cups, all that fun stuff. We didn't know about it. They didn't have it back then. It was like you literally got to go there to like this temple and take care of yourself and get cleaned up because we've noticed historically if you don't, the likelihood of infection is dramatically higher. So you could die. So you literally had to take a week out of every fucking month to go like take care of this thing.
Wow.
Um, And even beyond that, there's another book. It's a book called Feminism Against Progress, very aptly named. But she talks about this idea that women did contribute to like society as a whole. It was referred to more of like the shadow economy because it wasn't something that the GDP, like global, U.S. GDP could account for. It's like they'd be the ones, taking care of the children, cooking and cleaning, making sure everyone's cared for, caring for the elderly, caring for the sick. Um, Maybe they were doing a lot more of like the weaving and kind of like smaller things that could be created. Also, like doing farmhand work, but it's like more of the smaller work, not like so much like the big, heavy, bulky stuff that men would do. A lot of smaller stuff. So they were contributing, but so much of that, like textiles, for example, like clothing. A lot of women were responsible to like actually sew clothes, for example. And once factories came along, we invented a machine that could like pump out 10,000 shirts an hour. That job just went right out the window in less than a couple generations for a lot of women. So a lot of women basically said like, well, we have nothing to fucking do, but we can contribute. So what we want us to, this is where you get like women's suffrage and things like that. It coincides really nicely with a couple of things. One, the advent of vaccines. So like the child mortality rate dropped off significantly once we figured out how to like get kids to like live past 2 years old. And then two, a lot of technology took away a lot of women's jobs within the economy that wasn't like directly things we could check off on like a box saying like it was contributing to GDP and whatnot. So along the way, you had a lot of women who basically stepped into like the workforce, stepped into the roles as a result, and started to catch up. And even in the context of universities and whatnot, women on average do better in traditional classroom settings where it's like sit down and be quiet and focus. Little boys can't fucking do that. They go crazy.
No, nope.
They cannot. And this is where you get a lot of young guys, a lot of guys who are diagnosed with like ADD and ADHD life because they literally had to learn to dissociate while they're in classroom because they're going crazy. The same thing for me. I fucking hated school.
Sit down, be quiet, don't say a thing, raise your hand. You just
Yeah.
described a little girl.
I did like most little girls have, most women have more of a agreeable, like social cohesion strategy. Most men have a bit more of a disruptive, like push against the rules strategy. And there's a balancing act there. So you need a little bit of both.
Yep.
You don't, it's like if everyone gets along like, no one questions anything, you get like authority. Like this is like the two ends of the extreme. It's like if no one questions anything, you get like dictators. If everyone questions everything all the time, you get anarchy. Somewhere in the middle is the balance. So yeah, back to the women. Women basically entered the workforce en masse, and they did exceptionally well in university. They're on average, on average, the average woman is a bit more intelligent in terms of like educational and academic IQ than men are, which worked very well because we transitioned from a strength-based economy to a knowledge-based economy. Most of the economy was like, can you physically lift shit and do hard labor? Yes, cool. And then one day we figured out computers and this and that, and all of a sudden it's just like, no, we had to think. Women were generally very much better at doing that, and they started catching up in schools and a lot of programs that help push women ahead to kind of catch them up, Title IX and things like that. But it may have overcorrected in a way, and so we have a lot of women. A lot of the narrative out there towards men is basically men suck. We don't need men. Men are useless. Men are toxic. Toxic masculinity that cooks Y and Z, which nobody can fucking define, but we still talk about it. And all this stuff. And a lot of women have been sold this bill of goods of like, men are pieces of shit. We don't need them. Da, da, da. And then one day, like woman hits like, 30, 35 years old and goes like, fuck, no, I actually think I do want kids. But you missed the window because you just push them off. You piss them all off along the way.
Pissed off every guy along the way of
Yeah.
talking
And
metal.
so I think within there is, I think there are certain natural biological proclivities that we really kind of shit on that men feel good when they're protecting and providing. They literally feel good. There's actually like hormonal reasons for that. For example, do you know what vasopressin is? Or
I do
vasopressin?
not. I do
It's a
not.
hormone produced in like people's brains. It's like a number of hormones we can go through. Vasopressin is a hormone produced in your brain, usually when you accomplish a difficult task with people that you trust.
Mm.
So it's literally like a social bonding hormone that your body goes through when you like. That's why men love to solve shit and solve problems, usually with other men. And even in the context of like the military, like Band of Brothers, you went through some really difficult shit because you really have strong bonding. You love like guys love working together with shit. Consequent flip side of that, oxytocin, which everyone's heard of, is like that love bonding hormone. It's usually produced during like kissing, hugging, skin to skin contact. During sex is a pretty big one. any kind of like intimacy or romantic, loving affection, like intimate eye contact can produce it. But even when you're like, even during childbirth, part of the reason this is a funny one. It's like part of the reason that like women don't go crazy and murder the thing that just tore their body apart is because they're so full of oxytocin from childbirth that they're just madly in love with this child. And it's like if that didn't happen, nature we would have been extinct, how long ago. Women have, on average, more oxytocin receptors than men do, and men, on average, have more vasopressin receptors than women do.
Incredible.
And so the idea is like women tend to be more interested in people, men tend to be more interested in things. So yeah, this is all kind of like looping back. So like women, on average, generally have a naturally better ability for social bonding and cohesion, and love, caring, affection, and whatnot. Men tend to be more go get shit done. Assertive. They even feel good when they do things, especially with each other. Yeah. And now we're trying to forcibly reverse those roles. And so like, why men need to be more caring, kind, loving, and like women need to be like stronger. But then at the same time, you get these women who are basically saying like, I'm not attracted to a man who's not like masculine or manly.
Right.
Even though I thought I was going to be, I'm just not interested in it at all. And it's not anything wrong with the men or women along the way, but it's become this narrative, I think, for over the years, where it basically said like men have to be this, women have to be that, and then we tried forcibly reversing it, and it's just causing a lot of problems. And I think the concept of the passport bros, it's a bit extreme to be like not talking about like if I was married, like not talking to my wife the entire day, and be like, oh, I'm feeling sick, and she just does everything for me. That would be like, holy shit. But I could see where the appeal is there if the culture really fostered that. I think the problem is like we're overcorrecting, where it's like it's okay to say like could women be a little bit more in their masculine essence? Yeah, but most men respond better to like feminine energy, and women respond to masculine energy in that context. I think the overcorrection is what leading a lot of guys to go like, I'm literally just going to go where I'm appreciated. Like everyone around who's telling me I suck, everyone who's telling me I'm a bad person, everyone who's telling me I'm a piece of shit for just existing as I am. Why do I want to? Why go here? Why not go somewhere else where it's still like somewhat appreciated? And a lot of older cultures in that regard, yeah, that ties with the culture thing. A lot of older cultures in that regard, part of it is like almost necessity. I think there's an unspoken, unfortunate consequence to male and female dynamics that arises when the environment stresses you out enough. Okay. So it's like around here, yeah, women can operate independently because they have the infrastructure to like, go buy groceries on the block. If you're living in sub-Saharan Africa, like men are usually the ones out hunting because they're a little bit more expendable, and the odds of them being able to deal with a lion might be a little bit better.
Wait a minute. Wait. Oh, this is good. Oh my God. You're saying, I never even thought about it. You're saying the reason why women are able to thrive in certain aspects, and they braggadociously say that, oh, I don't need a man, is because of some of it is because of the environment they're in. Mm-hmm. It's very easy for a woman to Instacart some groceries or Instacart her food to her. Whereas if she's in the desert, she's not going out and hunting and killing and dragging it home.
There are tribes, there are places where they do contribute not similar, but like in different ways. It's like maybe the woman was like churning the butter and gathering the eggs while the man was dealing with the horses and the cattle in the back. But the idea is like could women physically do that labor? Yeah, not as fast as men could. Could men tend to the children when they're very, very young? Yeah, but not as well as women could. And it's not an insult to either sex. It's basically to say like we have complementary like things that we do, different things we value along the way.
That's true. That's so true.
And even even if you want to say like it's like the men will say like, oh well, we're the ones who built a society that women get to live in. It's like, yeah, the women gave birth to the men that built a society. And it's a back and forth. Like you need each other. It's totally fair to say you need each other. And generally speaking, at certain points in a child's life, like mom and dad has different roles to play, or in the context of the environmental circumstances you're in, men and women have different roles to play, or else we wouldn't have differentiated the way we did throughout evolutionary history.
Oh my God, that would be a firestorm, right? One of us through evolution, one of us be able to have kids without the other. That would be a relationship nightmare, and just pop a bubble. Everything we just said. Now it's completely shifted.
Was it, what was that again with
If
relationship?
if if a man or woman was able to evolve to the point where we're now able to have babies without the other, right?
Well,
Like
there's
how
surrogacy, there's in vitro fertilization. They're working on it.
and that's what's alarming. Those things, although right, those things to me are alarming because it perpetuates that technology statement that you made earlier, right? Due to technology, women are advancing in areas that they would typically would rely and depend on a man for. And so, if a woman could get pregnant through intravenous contraception, she doesn't necessarily need a man. I just need your sperm at that point. And I've had women scarily tell me that. Like I don't need a man. I just want to have a baby. I don't
I
need a
think
guy. I don't want to. I don't want to get married. I don't want relations. I want relations. Right. I want the stimulus of sex, but I don't want the guy to be there in the morning.
I think there's a personal theory is that there's going to be a slow collapse back towards more traditional values, regardless of what people want them to see. And not that I'm like for or against it. I think it's just happening. And I think it's collapsing in the direction of like the groups that have shown the greatest stability across time to perpetuate their customs and values. So it's like women running around saying like we don't need no man. It's like, all right, well, how are you going to get pregnant? If you have like, are you having enough kids to outpace the other groups that are also holding on to traditional values and customs that are happy to do it? A good example is like, I live down like I live basically in the Bible Belt in the East Coast, but a lot of just conservative groups are basically saying like, yeah, like mom does this, dad does this. We all go to church together. We have like tons of kids. The kids are pretty much they're raised in a very comparatively healthy and stable household. And then generationally, that gets repeated enough times that you're gonna like literally like population wise, they're gonna outpace you.
Yeah.
So if you have, and I think the other angle is also that
But
the
we're having a childbirth shortage.
depending on where you look, depending on like there is a what's the word population collapse and birth rate collapse going on. South Korea is supposed to be gone in like 100 years, something like that. But if you look more specifically within certain communities and certain behaviors, like I think there is these more traditional conservative communities are still producing way more kids on average. Like on the whole, a lot like on the greater part of the whole, there is some precipitous drop off here and there, which is partly due to certain different attributes and reasons. But for the most part, like a lot of these conservative communities are just going to keep doing what they're doing. It's been working for long enough.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
I'm not necessarily like pro any particular political thing left or right, but it does beg the question of like, what are they doing that's working that we can learn from if it's not working for you?
It's true. It's true. Sir, you've dropped so many nuggets this conversation. I'm sorry to take so much of your time. As you can tell, I'm passionate about this, right?
Mm-hmm.
This topic, this particular topic. And I'm passionate about our men and our women, but our men succeeding. And so that's why I this conversation just blew me and I lost track of time. Sir, you've dropped so many nuggets this episode. If you had one more nugget, if you had one more tip, one more thing to consider, what would it be to that young man watching you right now? What would you say to him who's in his mom's basement playing video games and getting his dopamine with his fidget spinner and his pornography on his laptop? What would you say to that young man to do today to make an effective, powerful change in his life so that we can start winning again?
If you're at a point that you know this is not the life you want to live, but you don't know how to get out of it and get through it, spend some time to find an older man who will not judge you for where you are right now and just seek his guidance.
Absolutely. How can people connect with you? Because you do this. You do
Mm-hmm.
this for real. How can people find you? The train has left the station, but it's not too late for a young man to get on board. How they can connect?
I'm on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. It's all Adaptive Men. And my website is www.adaptivemen.com.
Powerful, powerful. There you have it, y'all. Incredible man. We believe in this. That's why we've had this long. If you've watched this show, this conversation for a long while, if you are still here, we believe in you. We need you. We need our men to do better. We need our men to succeed. but we can't. Nobody, like Mr. Michael said, no one gets out of this alive. No one wins by themselves, and
Mhm.
it actually gives you a nice chemical hit when you do things together. We need each other. We need each other to win. So, uh, sir, I want to say this to you publicly, Mr. Michael. Don't ever quit. Don't ever stop what you're doing.
Thank you.
You are necessary. What you're doing is changing the world in a positive way every single day. So thank you for what you do. Don't ever stop.
Thank you, man.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And thank you all for tuning into the Gentleman Style Podcast Show. I hope this message was helpful. I hope this was encouraging. I hope this was inspiring, if nothing else, and informational. Um, this is incredible. I'm probably going to invite Mr. Michael for a part two because I have many more questions to have. But this was epic. Like we end every show, be on the lookout for a potential part two. Stay connected. Subscribe to the channel. We are on Apple, iTunes, iHeartRadio, LinkedIn, Facebook, Ghana, everywhere, even on Audible. Anywhere you get your podcast, we are there. Check him out. Get connected. Get connected. And if you don't remember anything he said, connect with me, and I will get you to him because we need this. Because our men are capable of so much more, and we believe in you. Like we end every show, take care of your friends, take care of your family, and always, always take care of business. This is Marcus, your favorite gentleman, and Mr. Superfragilistic Espialidocious, Mr. Michael, signing off. Love you guys.
Thank you.
Bye.